Today, we're diving deep into a platform that's been a game changer for me and countless other independent filmmakers, Filmhub. And this won't just be a fluff piece, we're going to get into some of the problems there as well. I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money. This is how. So, what exactly is Filmhub? Simply put, Filmhub is a distribution platform that's breaking down the traditional barriers of film distribution. It has democratized film distribution on a scale that few others have. It operates on a digital marketplace model. What the f does that mean? Well, it's a platform that places indie films directly with streaming services, TV networks, and other media outlets around the world, but mostly streaming services and OTT platforms. Though they are starting to dip their toes into physical media. Kinda. We'll get into that a little later. The cool thing about this direct-to-platform strategy is it eliminates the need for traditional distributors or sales agents, which can often take a hefty cut of the profits and delay the release process. And look, I'm not some big anti-traditional distribution process guy, and I'm not all about just Filmhub for everything. I still place a number of films with traditional distributors. I decide these things on a case-by-case basis. So how does Filmhub work? The process is pretty straightforward. As a filmmaker, you upload your film to their platform, complete all the necessary metadata and marketing materials. I'm going to be doing a video that goes through this step by step at a later date. Anywho, Filmhub then lists your film in their catalog and makes it visible to hundreds of potential buyers across their network. These buyers can range from large streaming services like Amazon and TUBI to smaller niche channels focused on specific genres or regions. What's really unique about Filmhub is its transparency. You can see where your film is and how much it's earning there. And these insights are updated weekly, monthly, or quarterly depending on the platform. This kind of data is invaluable. It not only informs you about your current earnings, but also helps guide your marketing strategies and future projects. And this is not common among distributors. With many distributors, you get a quarterly report that breaks down earnings in the most general way possible. I have a film out now with ITN. And once a quarter, I get a sheet that breaks down earnings by country, and that's pretty much it. But you can't tell within that country, even the US, what platforms the film is earned on or is even on at all. And that's not uncommon. There are some that give much more detailed reports, but still, these typically only come out once a quarter. And I have never seen a distributor that had a centralized online dashboard where you could track your title's earnings and placement. Sure, many distributors will share that specific info with you if you call them or email, but who wants to track their films like that? This is one huge advantage Filmhub has over most other distributors. I started using Filmhub around 2019. I now have over 40 titles there that have been distributed in over 116 countries. For the low budget level of films I typically make, that kind of reach is nothing short of amazing. Filmhub's broad network has allowed my films to achieve a global presence that was much harder to attain before. And quite honestly, a lot of the films I make are so low budget and so niche that most traditional distributors wouldn't touch them anyway. One such film, a documentary I made last year called Bigfoot Beyond the Legend, it's earned me over $20,000 in its first 3 months of release through Filmhub. And it's a movie that I don't think any other distributor would have picked up. It's 80% me talking to the camera over stock B-roll with a few interviews that were left over from other Bigfoot documentaries of mine, intercut throughout. I literally spent less than a week creating it. Now, most would say it's better suited for a YouTube video as opposed to being in the general marketplace. But the proof is in the pudding. People watched this, they rated it high, they liked it. And other than my time, this movie cost me nothing. Now, 10 years ago, just about the only place I could have made anything with this movie was YouTube, assuming that I had a monetized channel. But now, through Filmhub, it can get placed on platforms like TUBI, where it can earn me thousands of dollars a month. In fact, the money this movie is made on YouTube, where most people would say it's better suited, is much lower than the amounts it's earned on Amazon and Tubi. Now, that said, not every movie on Filmhub is going to earn like that one did. In fact, this is the most I've ever personally made on a movie in such a short period of time there. Now, most of my library there makes much less. If I were to compile a monthly average for all of my films through Filmhub, it would probably come out to around a few $100s a month. And I'd say most filmmakers are honestly doing even less than that. But that's not just a Filmhub thing. Those kind of stats hold for indie films in general, regardless of where they're being distributed. I've said this 100 times before, but today's market is tough for indie films. Regardless of the distribution method, regardless of how you get it out into the market, most indie films don't make shit. Sorry, it's just a fact. But you can still earn. I do. And there are others out there that are earning astronomically more than me. Films that are making $100K plus a quarter or even monthly, and I've seen the proof. One of the standout features of Filmhub for me is the ease of use. The user interface is clean, it's intuitive, making it simple to manage films and track their performance. And I may be in the minority, but I think this has improved since their big website redesign last year. Sure, the first few months after the redesign had some bugs, but they've been pretty much all worked out, and now I think the upload process is much easier. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows over at Filmhub. Like any platform, it comes with its own set of challenges. One of the biggest drawbacks with platforms as accessible as Filmhub is the potential for market saturation. With lower barriers to entry, the platforms can and have become more crowded with content, making it harder for individual films to stand out and earn more money. Now, this was happening to the market way before Filmhub ever came around. But as more filmmakers use the service, or others like it, hi Prime Video Direct, the sheer volume of available content can dilute visibility unless specific marketing strategies are employed. The revenue generated from Filmhub can also vary wildly depending on where and how your film is picked up. Some streaming platforms pay off better than others, and some films may perform well on certain platforms, but not very well at all on others. This unpredictability can make financial planning challenging, especially for filmmakers like me who rely on a consistent income stream. Like I mentioned earlier, I had one film make over $20K in 3 months. But I had others of comparable or even superior quality making less than $20 a month in that same time frame. Discovery on Filmhub, just like with many digital platforms, can heavily rely on algorithms. These algorithms can favor certain types of content, genres, or even specific formatting styles, which might not always align with your film's characteristics. This reliance can impact how often your film is recommended to potential buyers, affecting overall viewership and revenue. I'll be talking more about this in future videos. Then, there's Filmhub's communication with their filmmakers, or lack thereof. Given its broad global reach and large volume of users, there have definitely been challenges with customer support and issue resolution. There is not a phone number you can call for support, issues are relayed through email, and it can take days or sometimes weeks to hear back, if at all. I've been with them for years, have an account that brings in a lot of money, and I've even interviewed the CEO on this very channel, and it takes me days to get a response from them, and sometimes I get no response at all without following up multiple times. Which brings us to many filmmakers' biggest issue with Filmhub, their new upfront and extra service costs. For many years, there were absolutely no upfront costs with Filmhub. And while it is still free to create an account and upload a film, but now, if you want to do certain things like block specific platforms from hosting your film, you have to pay a monthly subscription fee for that. Some see this as a bait and switch. They brought in users for free, got them hooked, and then started charging for services that were free before. But it's not quite that simple. My feelings on this are complicated. On one hand, I do understand why this came to be. There are tens of thousands of filmmakers using this service, and filmmakers are constantly messaging support to have movies removed from a channel or to update art or whatever. These things take time and man hours for Filmhub to manage. Filmhub is a business, and at some point it was going to be inevitable that they would have to start charging for some of these services. At this point, I personally do not pay for any of the extra services or tiers, as I don't really care about blocking my films from any platforms. I rarely update my titles, and if I did care about any of those things in regards to a specific film, I most likely wouldn't distribute it through Filmhub anymore. Though I have been thinking a little bit recently about maybe joining the $99 a month tier, mostly for being able to update up to 5 titles a year with new art and metadata, as I do see some value in this, especially for older titles. I also kind of think it would be fun to see the producer analytics where they compare you generally to other titles on Filmhub. Which brings me to the analytics. And I've seen a lot of filmmakers complaining about the analytics and how they're not quite real time, and sometimes it takes them longer to update than others. And frankly, this complaint just straight up baffles me. Prior to Filmhub, most filmmakers had to typically wait months or quarters to get any kind of report back from a distributor, which rarely broke down a film's earnings as detailed as Filmhub does. And to this day, I still can't think of one that does it like Filmhub. And none of them, to the best of my knowledge, like I mentioned before, have a centralized dashboard to track your titles. Which brings me to their physical distribution. Now, this is fairly new with them, and to be quite honest, this is one service that, at least right now, I would not recommend using, at least not at this point. Right now, their main method for doing physical distribution is using a media on-demand company called Allied Von, which is something that anyone can do themselves without paying the Filmhub markup. Now, if the placement opportunities grew and their markup shrank, I would consider it. But for now, it's a no-no for me. Despite some problems, I've personally found the benefits of using Filmhub far outweigh the challenges. And I have been having my films distributed now for over 20 years. I've used traditional distributors, aggregators, DIY distribution, and I'm not saying that Filmhub is the absolute best of the best or best for every film, but overall, I really like it, and I'm really happy it exists, and I do recommend at least looking into it to see if it's right for you. But whatever you do, keep making movies.